Game Over Edmonton is broadcasting from the Game Over Network channel for the playoffs, but come 2024 in October, we're relaunching with our own channel. So for all of your Edmonton Oilers news, analysis, and fun, make sure you open the Game Over Network channel from this video, scroll past my ugly mug, and head on down to the Game Over Edmonton channel from our featured channels area. Click subscribe and make sure you ring that reminder bell to make sure that you get notified whenever we post something or go live.
I would say happy Saturday, but it's not been great. Welcome to Game Over Toronto. My name is Lauren Williamson. I'm happy to have you here, even if I'm not happy that we have to talk about how awful this game is. I am wearing black because I am mourning the loss of the season, even though the series is 3-1. Yeah. It's funny because I'm trying. If I show you how I'm actually feeling, I'm just screaming, crying, throwing up. But that doesn't make for very good content. And so I've tried to come up with as many clever euphemisms for how awful the Leafs are being right now as possible, and I've written a bunch of them down. So I'm going to apologize ahead of time for the amount of dark humor and nihilistic humor that's probably going to be in this episode, because the Leafs are just lost Game 4 to Boston, 3-1, down in the series now, 3-1. And it seemed appropriate to wear black. Because if the Leafs play on Monday the way they played tonight, I am imagining that we will be mourning more than just the loss of the season. I imagine we will be mourning the removal of several individuals that belong to the Leafs organization. I'm not going to name names yet in the stream, but I gotta tell you, that game tonight was about as joyless as I've had to watch as a hockey fan. I want to say in more than a couple of years. And that's going back to the Habs season series loss a couple years ago. It's very difficult to not just want to put my head through the laptop, or really to just rage, scream, and cry for 5 minutes and then just end the stream, because I mean, realistically, I could only really go for that long with that amount of energy, with how bothered I am with how poorly the team is playing. So, like I said, if you're just joining, welcome. My name's Lauren. This is Game Over Toronto for now, until at least Monday for now. We will see what happens in Game 5, but currently the Leafs are looking like shells of themselves. To begin the third period, I mean, we're going to talk about the whole game, but the third period, Auston Matthews not starting on the bench, does not return to the game. Ilya Samsonov also pulled, and Joseph Woll put in, and just a whole lot of shite tonight as a hockey fan from the team that I love and that we expect so much from. It's funny because if you watched the game and you're here and you're watching, first of all, welcome, happy to have you. They keep talking about how, the regular season they're like 7th for goals for, and how none of that is existing in the playoffs. And so much of the hype about this team this year was about how they've gone out and they've made these moves to get more scoring in the playoffs, and it just seems like no matter who the personnel are on the ice, it just doesn't work. It doesn't seem to matter who you bring at the trade deadline. It doesn't seem to matter what you do in the offseason. It doesn't seem to matter who signs a contract renewal. None of it seems to matter, because as soon as it turns into the middle of April, as we all know, the playoffs are different, as a different style of hockey. And I think it's, at this point, I'm not even raging. I'm almost ambivalent. And I'm almost resigned to this possible fate. A fate that, as a fan, it makes me terribly sad that I feel this way about the team that I love so very much. I mean, I obviously give a damn, right? Like, I have several $100s worth of jerseys. I've gone to several games in the last couple of years specifically. I have invested a lot of time and energy and effort, even before streaming, into this team. And it just feels like it just feels like Groundhog Day. It feels like Groundhog Day every year in the playoffs. And I don't know if this is emblematic of, and I don't want to like foreshadow it, but let's just for kicks, and because I'm feeling slightly nihilistic, I would just like for the team to consider, okay, I use this 5-star notebook to take my notes, okay, and I've got a new one for this season. It's like Game Over Season 2. Look at that, okay, and I usually use 2 pages for every single stream, and there is, in this, before the next little tabule where it goes to the next section, I have 2 pages left, which happens to just be enough for one more game on Monday, which, you know, I don't necessarily believe in signs from the universe, but if I was going to read a sign, that's a pretty fucking good one. I mean, the game tonight itself is a sign in of itself, right? The Leafs continue to completely be it's not even anemic on the power play now. You're now in hospice. You're 1 for 14. And Boston is very much not 1 for 14. They're 6 for 13 on the season so far in the playoffs. And, you know, if the Leafs have even half of what the Bruins have in terms of power play goals, this series may look different. I mean, look at the game yesterday. That game until the end of the second period was totally winnable. And the first 40 minutes of this game, it looked like they weren't going to win until what? Maybe halfway through the third period? Which, you know, last year, don't get me wrong, last year the Toronto Maple Leafs were able to fight back in Game 4 against Tampa. I was in Maple Leaf Square when it happened, less than 10 minutes to go, and I said, you know, there's a chance that they turn this thing around. They do. They end up scoring. They end up going to overtime. Alex Kerfoot gets the game-winning goal. But if you look at the series last year, if you look at how the Leafs were playing, if you look at the bounces they were getting, if you look at the way that they were playing, if you look at the chances that they were getting, it just seems like last year's team had more opportunity and was making good on more opportunities than this year's team. I mean, I hate the team that we're playing more than any other team in the league. It's no quiet secret that I really don't like Boston. For a myriad of reasons. It's not just limited to the fact that I can't stand Brad Marchand. That helps. But, you know, I'm going to compliment my enemy here and say Boston, as the series goes on, continues to look more and more confident. They look like they're playing for each other. They look like they're giving a damn. They look like every time they're on the ice, they're trying, and they're skating to be first on the puck. And from puck drop tonight, more than a couple of our players are lackadaisical, standing up skating. They're gliding like they're trying to regain stamina on NHL 24. And it makes me just want to rip this silly little notebook in half. And the worst part is now that I have to stream again, which I love doing, and it's so good, and I missed it when I wasn't able to, it just makes it so much harder knowing that I have to stream afterwards and try to find positive things to talk about so I don't just scream to the void. Because there was no player on the Leafs tonight that had a good game. There wasn't. I don't know if a single person had a good game for the Leafs. I mean, Mitch Marner gets his first to the playoffs. Congratulations, Game 4. It's about time. But that happens, you know, 5 minutes into the third period of Game 4. And it just feels like it feels identical to last season against the Panthers, where it just, no matter what the Leafs did, they just look disjointed, they look disconnected, they look discombobulated, they look whatever term you want to use. They look like they've never played together. The amount of shitty zone entries or non-existent zone entries or zone denials that happened, the amount of times that they would flip the puck in, you know, halfway into the Bruins zone, only for the Bruin to get there before the Leaf, because the Leaf wasn't skating nearly half as well as the Bruin was. Like, it was let's talk about the game from the beginning, now that I've been ranting for 7 minutes. Leafs get a power play to start 3 minutes in. Would have loved for them to score there on a single power play outside of one game. You know, the Bruins kill it off. The Leafs end up getting hemmed in a bunch of times for at least 30 seconds. The Bruins hemmed them in because They're forechecking hard and they're pressuring the people that have the puck, which is not something the Leafs are doing. They could stand to learn something like that. Immediately following that, Marner trips Charlie McAvoy. Boston goes on the power play. David Kampf and Matthew Knies getting clears, and they finally kill it off. There's a 4-for-4. There's a 4-on-4 with 8:48 to go. Edmondson and Maroon took each other off, which ends up in a 4-on-3 for the Leafs because McAvoy ends up taking Brody down and they get an opportunity. Nothing fucking happens. You put out the line of Tavares, Nylander, Matthews, and Marner, and it's $45 million of wet fart on the ice. You from the puck drop in the offensive zone. Matthews is in the wrong position. Boston gets an opportunity to go the other way. Shorthanded 4-on-3. Like, I wouldn't want to see that in a preseason game. And you're doing it in game 4. And it's like they want to lose. Like, that's the only explanation that I can think of that's not just that they're awful. Because we know that they are able to score good goals. They show us in those fleeting moments, seemingly, like a flash in the pan, of how hot that flame can be when it's going. But it's a sputtering pilot light at this point. It's not even enough to turn the oven on. And so that's how the first period ends. JVR, because who else gets a goal with 4:51 to go at the end of the first period. William Nylander gets a shot, end of the first period. Again, just 1-0. Still a very winnable game at that point, but the shots were 7-7. It's clear that as the series is going on, the Bruins are watching game tape, and they know exactly how the Leafs are going to play. And for all of his ability to line swap and put the lines in the blender as he does, Keith is attached to his zone entries like a child with their favorite toy. It's like his preference went from loving Justin Hall to just loving that zone entry and refuses to let anything happen or encourage anything else to happen because there's no dynamic that's different in any zone entry. Like, I'm getting off topic. Let's talk about the second period. Leafs get a chance. Bert holds the zone to start the second period. There was a really good opportunity, I will say, for Tavares and Marner, but no one's able to bury it. Willie gets a really good chance, 2-on-1. The fourth line got hemmed in like crazy during this game. Connor Dewar came out. Nick Robertson moved down to the fourth line because William Nylander came back in, so obviously someone had to come out. And then Domi gets called. There's a Boston power play with 12:37 to go. There was no sense of urgency on the PK, and Brad Marchand, Boston Stars, get a power play goal. That goal, more than anything, was just Samsonov was just in a really bad spot. He was out at the top of his crease and wasn't anticipating the pass over to Marchand. No one was covering him, and it's in the back of the net, and they're up 2-0 with 11 minutes to go in the second period. Boston at that point was 6 for 12 on the power play, and the Leafs were 1 for 13. They've lost 5 straight playoff games at home, and end up losing both games at home. The Leafs just looked super disconnected basically the whole second period. They weren't making good on any chances. They weren't creating any rush opportunities at all. They weren't able to transition from their own zone into the offensive zone. Is it the building? The first period, even at the end of the first period, fans were still cheering "Go Leafs Go," but by halfway through the second period, you could hear the boos happening. And, it's funny, Joe Bowen the other day, God love him. And, he's my current favorite Leafs color commentary guy. I love listening to Joe Bowen. He actually calls out the fans the other day and being like, oh, the fans need to be better. And while that's true, fans pay money to be there. And after a game like that, I'd be booing too. Because I'm actually a fan of when fans boo the team, because it lets the team know, if they didn't already, that they're not playing well enough. And it seemingly worked at one point tonight, because it ends up, there was a hailstorm of boos happening, and then right after that, Marner finally gets a goal. He gets a really nice backhand, 5 minutes and 43 seconds into the third period. But at that point, they're down 3-0. Marchand, like I said, Marner finally gets one, but Marchand ends the second period with a 2-on-1 with Pasta. They beat Bertuzzi and Domi. 42 seconds to go, and they're up 3-0 to end the second period. And at that point, it didn't feel the same way, let's say, Game 4 did last season, where, you know, the Leafs just felt like one bounce away, you know, one shot away. It doesn't feel the same as that, and it's because they're not creating the same kind of opportunities. Because, surprising to, I hope nobody, sorry, my apologies. Boston seems to know what Toronto's playbook looks like. Like, I'm talking cover to cover. They know exactly what every single player is going to do. They know about what the entries are going to look like. They know what the dumping chances are going to look like. They know what the lines are going to look like. They know what the defensive pairings are going to look like. They know how Toronto cheats on offense, and they're able to take advantage of that. Like, there's a reason that Boston, in and out, despite the fact that they were kicked out in the first round last year, is a perennial playoff contender, because they do their fucking research. And don't get me wrong, the Leafs have their strengths. I think the Leafs, if I'm not mistaken, have more coaches challenge success calls than basically any other team in the league. And that means fuck all at this time of year, when you're not really going to challenge anything like that. And I would much rather, instead of having, you know, my video coaches be great, I would rather have somebody that's mildly competent organizing the Leafs power play. Because someone needs to take that poor thing and put it outside of go old yeller it outside the back of the shed. Like, it's, the third period goes on. Bushka almost got a goal. It was a really nice crossbar. That's great. Marner gets that chance. We find out partway through the third period that Austin Matthews is not returning to the game. We did not get an answer why. If they announced that, if you could put that in the chat, I would love to talk about it if we know. Joel Edmondson gets a couple of really nice shots. But again, they're blocked by a very good goaltender. And then, 9-12 to go, Boston gets another power play. Yarncroke is able to clear it, thankfully. 6 minutes in, with 6 minutes to go, Marner has the puck, tries to gain the zone, isn't able to get down. Benoit got taken down at the very end. The Leafs got a power play. Pasternak went off with 5:43 to go. But they couldn't hold the zone. They couldn't get a solid entry. They got not a single shot on that power play. And the game ends with them being booed off the ice, losing 3-1, going back to Boston, TD Gardens on Monday night. Just like we all predicted. I mean, last game, there was a very clear shot of Brad Marchand after scoring a goal, which I believe ended up being the game-winning goal. As he's skating towards his bench to give them a bunch of fist bumps, he goes, "It's over in 5." And right now, I'm sorry, if you're a Toronto Maple Leaf, please know that I want you to win. He's proving himself completely right. You have gift-wrapped the series to him. You've put a nice little bow on it to Brad from the Leafs. Here you go. Christmas in April. You're gifting them the series because of stupid plays, because of stupid pass choices, because of so many defensive lapses and so many times of people trying to cheat to gain offense and prioritizing hitting the body instead of hitting the puck. Because as this game went on, the less I was caring about the score and the more I was just watching the gameplay and what they were doing. I don't know if I have seen another team that gets to, like, the Stanley Cup final try and double man body check as many people as the Leafs have this series. And don't get me wrong, as a fan of this sport and as a fan of the city and as a fan of my hockey team, I like that they're playing a little more physical. It's kind of nice for them to be that. But the fact of the matter is, do you know which team ends up having more hits? Is the team that doesn't have the fucking puck. And tonight, once again, they lead the score sheet in hits, and it's not something to write home about because you end up losing. The only thing that matters is putting the puck in the back of the net. And they're prioritizing hitting, and they're prioritizing laying the body instead of trying to gain defensive positioning and putting yourself between the player that has the puck and the puck. Brutal. Okay, let's go to some chat. First, we're going to get a quick little ad from Peter about Game Over Calgary. I'm going to repost the link for the Game Over Toronto channel As we're relaunching Game Over, obviously, we're starting over from scratch. So when the playoffs inevitably end this series at the end of this series for the Leafs, because it doesn't feel like they're going to get any further, I'll be back next season to host Game Over Toronto. So if you could give us a follow on Game Over Toronto, it would be great. The good thing is about us restarting, is you don't have to deal with Andrew Berkshire content. You don't have to deal with Game Over Edmonton content. You don't have to deal with Game Over Winnipeg content. If you subscribe to Game Over Toronto, you get just Game Over Toronto content. That's it. So if you could give it a like, if you could give it a subscribe, it would go a long way. Let's hear from Peter quickly, and then we will be right back.
Game Over Calgary is relaunching in October. For all your Game Over Calgary content, make sure you subscribe to our Calgary-specific YouTube channel. Open the Game Over Network YouTube page in a new tab from this video, scroll past Andrew talking, and click on the Game Over Calgary channel in our featured channel section. Click subscribe and make sure you hit the drop-down menu to get notified when we post videos or go live. Tell all your Flames fan friends and family to check it out and join our awesome community. And make sure you smash the like button on this video right into oblivion.
So I was just going over the chat and making sure there was no fancy things happening down there. So let's talk about a couple of things. Let's take a break from the nihilism and talk about maybe the only nice thing that I saw tonight, and that was the pre-game tribute to Bob Cole. We're gonna get back to talking about the Leafs in just a quick second, but I actually wrote down here how great that tribute was right before the game started. I watched hockey for as much as I could from my childhood. We didn't actually have cable, so we caught it whenever we could, and I don't know if there's any really relevant hockey clips in Canada that are in color that don't have Bob Cole's voice on them. And so for him to no longer be around, even though he's been retired for years now, it's a huge loss to hockey. It's a huge loss to hockey fandom, and it's a huge loss for, I imagine, anybody that's ever watched hockey in Canada, because of the impact that he had, because of how long he was involved in it, because of how many players he saw and how many great moments that he was involved in calling. Even though it's unlikely that they ever see it, I obviously want to give my condolences to Bob Cole's friends and family. It's funny, like when I saw who passed away, I didn't put two and two together until I saw some of the tribute videos, and it kind of hit me like a truck. So, and the other thing too is, like, my wife's not from New Mexico, so when all this is happening, she doesn't get it. She's like, it's just, I mean, God bless her. She likes hockey now, but she didn't grow up somewhere where she knew his voice or ever heard it or understand, the significance of his contributions to hockey over the years and how long he did his job for, and how many millions of Canadians have heard hockey games and watched hockey games that are called by him, whether it's international play, whether it's the NHL, whether it's Stanley Cup Playoffs, regardless. For a lot of people, myself and older, and even a couple years younger than me, we have a lot of our hockey memories have his voice attached. So a huge loss for hockey and for the Leafs and for anybody that's an NHL fan. So obviously condolences to him and his family. Now let's get back to talking about what we're here to talk about and talk about the Leafs once more. Now, to start the third period, Ilya Samsonov was pulled. Joseph Woll goes in. He looked fine. He made a couple of nice saves. He does let the one goal in, but that's the way he doesn't let any goals in. Sorry. He looked fine for the third period. I don't know if I would start him game 5, but I also don't know if we have much of a choice considering how they're playing. And the other thing that we need to talk about really quickly, despite the fact that he finally got a goal tonight, is Mitch Marner. Now, I'm going to take a sip before this rant. Now, I'm not usually one that's on the trade Mitch Marner train. I try to stay off of that. As long as someone is in the jersey of the team that I love, I do my best to cheer for them. Having said that, in the second intermission, I went on Twitter to make my tweet and to make my post about going live tonight on Game Over Toronto. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. It's right down here. And there was a clip that they showed of what looked like a small disagreement happening on the Leafs bench, with Matthews talking in the general to quote Monty Python, in the general direction of Mitch Marner, and then William Nylander talking in the general direction of Mitch Marner, saying, where's the quote? I have it right here. I saved it because I wanted to make sure that I had it for this moment. Stop fucking crying, bro. This isn't junior hockey, is what he appears to say. Following that, Mitch Marner takes his gloves off and throws them on the ground behind him. Now, let's just ruminate on that for a second. Because previously, when we have seen the best hockey that the Leafs are able to produce, these players are joyful, they're happy for each other, they're talking, they're discussing, they're planning, they're going over game tape together. And while I do think it's important that players hold each other accountable, it seems like that is trying to happen, and certain players on this team are trying to force accountability onto other players. And it seems like there are a couple of players that get a case of the upsetsies when that happens. And that gif, because we don't hear it, the image of that, which I retweeted and I will retweet again at the end of this video. If you don't follow me on Twitter, please do, at Lauren6. I just reposted it. Go look at it. It's not quiet. And you can tell that there is some tension on the bench. And we know that as series go on, and as the Leafs continue to not score in the playoffs, which has been a consistent struggle basically the whole time the Matthews era has been a thing, these moments of contention happen. However, normally we see them rising together, and even if they don't overcome what's happening, they do it as a team. And this is the first time that we have really seen cracks in that armor. And now, again, he had a very beautiful assist last game for Matthew Knies. And tonight, Mitch Marner is the only person that scores against Jeremy Swayman. But I think that at this point in the series, in the playoffs, in the tenure of some of these players in the blue and white uniform playing at Scotiabank Arena, I think that velvet rope has come to an end, and that red carpet is charring under their feet. And I imagine that if the worst case scenario happens, which is what it's looking like right now, if that happens, there is a very good chance that multiple players from this team are traded, that Sheldon Keefe is fired, that Brendan Shanahan is fired. And I just want to make it perfectly clear, in case you think I want to keep those people, I think that just looking at how everything has gone down, Sheldon Keefe is very capable as a coach in the regular season, but he has a terrible winning record in the playoffs. It's not even close. And so if the Leafs were to lose in the first round again, I imagine a lot of the coaching staff will be gone. I imagine if Guy Boucher is not fired before next game, it would be a crime against humanity. He should have, if they lose the series, he needs to be gone, because even though they apparently have like the 7th best playoff or power play percentage in the regular season, not in the last 2 months, it wasn't very good. And spoiler alert, the special teams coach is in charge of that. So I don't want to trade Mitch Marner. You know, as somebody that's from the area, I can only imagine, and when I play NHL Be a Pro, I make it so that I get drafted by Toronto because I'm biased and I love my team and I would want to play for the team that I grew up cheering for. I think that is a very normal thing for people to want. But with that comes a higher expectation of play. It comes with a higher expectation of execution. And when you request $11 million, it comes with an even higher increase. That just gets jacked up even more. And so this reaction now is not based explicitly on this year's playoffs. Obviously, that's a contributing factor. This is a team that cannot seem to put anything good together in the playoffs. And if one of your assistant captains is one of those people that is contributing to the downfall, then that player should be gone. It's too bad, because I'm sure that wherever players end up being traded, that they're going to go on and they're going to have success, right? Let's look at let's go through the short little laundry list of people that are on other teams that are currently in the playoffs. Sam Lafferty having a heck of a playoffs. Mason Marchment on Dallas. Okay, even though Dallas is on the ropes right now against Vegas, in the playoffs. Evan Rodriguez on Florida in the playoffs. Okay, I could go on. The fact of the matter is, players get traded every day, and he has a no move. I think he has a full no trade clause. But I think that if this series goes south and continues to go south and continues to be a leaky ship that it is and has been so far this playoffs, I think that there is enough noise that he wouldn't want to stay, that he doesn't want a contract renewal. And I think that he is costing himself money because he is eligible to be, to get a contract renewal as of Canada Day. And at this point, he's tied in goals this playoffs with David Kampf. So unless you're willing to take David Kampf money, I don't know what to tell you, because he's increasingly frustrating, and you can just feel the fact that someone's got to go. And I don't think it's going to be John Tavares. He's one of the only players that's had more than one goal this series. And it's not William Nylander. You just re-signed him into a contract. It's not Austin Matthews, despite the fact that he hasn't been phenomenal this series either. He leaves the game tonight. I saw someone in the chat say that there's speculation that it was food poisoning. Obviously, I don't want that to be true, but if it is that, then I hope that it is just that and that he's back in a couple of days. But if the Leafs lose in the first round, I imagine that there is going to be some Indeed ads up within a couple days. And I don't even know who would come in to replace so many of those individuals, but here we are. Realistically, you can't get Spencer Carby back. He's the head coach of Washington, so that is dead on the water. You have to come up with another plan. Yeah. What a game. It just... Am I wrong in saying that it feels different than the series did last year against Tampa? Like, last year against Tampa, it felt like we were getting bounces. When we were getting the calls, we were making good on them. It felt like we were dynamic. It felt like we were more of a shooting threat. It felt more like something was going to happen. And this season just... It doesn't... It felt like we were walking into the playoffs with our feet already chained around concrete. And the more time goes on, the worse it looks. And, I mean, it's 3-1. Like, last season, Boston went up 3-1 against Florida, and Florida came back. But the difference is this team is not Florida. This team doesn't score the way Florida does. They don't play as hard as Florida does. And I don't really have belief that that's going to happen. And I want nothing more for them to prove me wrong. And for me to have to eat stone cold crow. Because it's a shame. It's not even maddening. At this point, it's just a shame that this has gone so far south, and it feels so unwinnable. And that's just from my couch. Like, I can't imagine what the energy's like in that locker room right now. Like, I don't even know who's going to pull it out, because normally the people that you expect to pull it out aren't the people that seem able to right now to get us out of a funk. So it's hard to watch. Let's get to a couple things in the chat before we wrap up here. As a Bruins fan, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being nice and not just coming in and making me boot a whole bunch of people. That's delightful. As a Bruins fan, from watching this game, it didn't seem like the Leafs honestly cared. They didn't play a full 60 minutes or show up for one period, and it's honestly sad to see. Yeah, that's a very nice way to put it. Thank you for being so kind, because honestly, they don't really deserve you being that nice. But they looked unenthusiastic. They looked uninterested. They looked completely unengaged. And if this ends, and in, what time is it now? And in a minute, when the post game or in about a half an hour, when the post game interviews with Keefe and the rest of the players are posted, if I hear Sheldon Keefe say, "Well, we're exactly where we want to be. We're just one win away from this series," and if he hits that on the bingo card, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because it feels more and more game by game, minute by minute, hour to hour, shift by shift, that Keefe has lost the room. And I don't know who you would, if you were going to fire Keefe, who you would hire. But, I mean, heck, maybe if Tampa loses the series against Florida, maybe they fire John Cooper and we can hire him. Because I don't know what else we would do. I wish that I had something better, something nicer to say. I really do. I'm trying to be as positive as possible, because I want so badly to have belief and to be able to sit here and say, well, it's just one game and, they can come back and win it. And there's a chance that they do. Maybe they show up in TD Garden on Monday and they kick the Bruins up and down the ice. But at this point, you're down 3-1, which means you have to win the next 3 games or you're done. And they have not been able to put even 2 good periods of hockey together. They haven't given me a reason to believe that they're able to put 3 games together of solid hockey end to end for a full 60 minutes. It comes back to the whole, when someone tells you who they are, you should believe them. And it feels like in this series, the Leafs are telling us who they are as a team. And I think a lot of fans that have been fans of this team for a long time, I think the new owner of MLSE all believe that if this series ends the way that it looks like it's going to, with not being swept but just by the skin of their teeth, with 1 power play goal and what by the end of next game will end up being around 17 opportunities, there's no reason to not throw the whole team in the bin and start over, because it doesn't feel like there's any positive part of this team to celebrate or have belief in. The forwards aren't able to get it done. The depth, while competitive, isn't able to score. The defense at times has looked fine, and they've looked very good in terms of physicality, but they're like second last in the playoffs so far this year for expected goals by a defenseman, or by points per game for a defenseman. I think they're down to 0.75. The goaltending, Samsonov gets pulled at the end of the second period this game, is not what we were hoping it would be in terms of a tandem. The power play and the PK, like special teams, hasn't looked good. There's no part of this team that leads me to believe, or would leave an objective hockey fan to believe, that they can get it done. So definitely not a good way to go. Maybe the only benefit is that now that they're not playing at home, because they have a terrible record at home, not only in the playoffs this year but regular season as well. It definitely feels like the sky is falling. Yeah. Let's get back to some questions from the chat. Andrew H98. Welcome, Andrew. Happy to have you, bud. CJ, the Leafs have lost 6 straight playoff games on home ice, getting outscored 21-11. That's nice. Oh, man. Hard to imagine Rogers wants fewer Leaf playoff games. That's got to factor in come playoff season. Yeah, that's true. Cheer for a new team. I mean, listen, FX 1883, you won't know this if you haven't been here before, and I don't really advertise it. I actually own a Seattle Kraken jersey. Just saying. So, although they're not in the playoffs this year, so that doesn't help me either. The Leafs in a post-1979 best-of-7 series have yet to be swept. That said, to Game Over Network Lauren's claim about throwing this team in the bin, I couldn't agree more given the rubbish. Yeah, again, when people show you who they are, believe them. Because right now, they're just showing us that they are regular season performers that want lots of money, and that's great, so go play somewhere else where you can make lots of... You know where you can go? Go to Salt Lake City. You don't go live in the mountains. They got a brand new team. You can go sit there, make lots of money, and go, I don't know, play in Salt Lake. Because I don't want you on my team. Sorry. I want people that are able to perform when the spotlight is brightest. And there is nary a player on this team this year that has made me go, wow, I'm so glad that they're on my team. And that's not good to say. It's not great. Trade Marner for Ullmark. As much as I would love that, and as much as in every single franchise mode game that I do play, I actually do end up getting Linus Ullmark because I think he's a really good goalie. I actually wanted him back when he was in Buffalo. When he became a free agent, I wanted him so badly on the Leafs. But instead, he went to another Atlantic Conference team, and now they're great and in the playoffs, and I'm just fine. Oh, and you know what else I'm fine about? The fact that Jeremy Swayman said on a podcast recently that he was fully expecting and anticipating to be drafted by the Leafs, and then the Leafs didn't draft him, they drafted someone else, and now he's playing against them and is winning the series 3-1. It's great. It's great. It's great. So before this goes any more off the rails, let's wrap it up there. Really quickly, one more time, please, if you could give Game Over Toronto, I'm going to repost the link for Game Over Toronto in the chat. If you could just go over and give that a follow, if you could give this a like, it would go a long way. I really appreciate you being here. I'm sorry that I wasn't my normal cheerful self, but I did what I can with the content that I was given, because it was not a good hockey game by the Leafs. And, I mean, it's only game 4. And maybe in a week and a half, I'll be laughing and we'll be on to the next round. And this will all be a distant memory. But I think the best part of this game is that it's over and now I don't have to watch it ever again. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, if you could, I'm also on Threads. I'm on everything, basically. The Freckled Lauren on Instagram. Lauren in the 6 on Twitter, on a couple of other social medias as well. Again, if you could follow the Game Over Toronto, I did put the link in the chat. It would go a long way. And make sure you hit up the other Game Overs that we're doing for the playoffs. I mean, hey, Toronto's not playing well, but Edmonton's looks like it's a wagon, and they might have another fan in a week and a half on my count. So have yourself a great night. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the weekend, and we will be back for Game 5 in TD Garden against Boston. Will the Leafs thrive or will they flounder? We will be there. We will be live. I can't wait to see you again. Thank you for watching. And have a good night.
Game